Look at this woman. She is standing at the back of a bright new estate, in a crowd of rich buyers, and her sandals do not match the marble under her feet. In her two hands she holds one old photograph, up high above her head, so a man at the far podium can see it. The man is a billionaire. Everybody in Owerri knows his name. He builds the tallest houses in the city, and on this afternoon, in front of cameras and elders and people who came to buy land, that billionaire is about to hear a song. A small song from a phone. A courtship song that only two people in the whole world ever shared. He does not know this woman. He has said so at his own gate. He has said so to the whole country on television. But what will happen when the last line of that song reaches him, and when he reads the writing inside the ring he has worn for 11 years without knowing why? If you enjoy true and touching stories, please subscribe so you never miss what we bring you. Now, let the story begin. To understand the song, we must go back 11 years, to a scaffold that fell, and a thin wedding band that a woman never took off. It was early morning in the city of Owerri. By 4 o'clock, before the sky over Douglas Road had even thought of turning gray, Uchechi Nwokolo was already awake. She sat on a low wooden stool with a wrapper tied under her arms, and in front of her stood her loom. She was weaving akwete cloth, the strong, bright cloth of her people, in a pattern her mother had taught her as a girl. She wove because the loom did not ask her how she was feeling. She wove because when her hands were busy, her heart was a little quieter. Uchechi was 44 years old. She lived in a rented one-room off the Douglas Road end of town. A small place with a single window, a curtain dividing her side from her daughter's side, and a roof that let in a thin line of rain whenever the sky was angry. On the wall, in a cheap frame, hung the only photograph she owned. In it, a young woman in white lace was laughing, and beside her, a young man in a dark suit was looking at her instead of at the camera. That was her wedding day. That was Ekine. 11 years had passed since the day they told her Ekine was dead. He had been a site worker then, a strong, quiet man who carried blocks and climbed scaffolds for daily pay, saving every spare coin to one day train as a builder himself. Uche. One day I will build houses instead of carrying blocks for other men, he used to say. And the first house I build, I will build for you. She would laugh and call him a dreamer, and he would laugh back and say, a man who does not dream is already buried. Then came the day of the scaffold. A rushed job on the far side of the city. Too many men on wood that was too old. The scaffold gave way in the afternoon, and Ekine fell with 3 other men. The other families were given bodies to bury. Uchechi was given only words. A supervisor she had never met came to her door with his cap in his hand and told her that her husband's body had been carried away in the confusion, that so many had been hurt that day, and that she should accept it and be strong. There was no body. There was no grave. There was only a small paper, months later, that said her husband was presumed dead. She had been pregnant then. Their daughter was born 4 months after the scaffold fell, and Uchechi named her Chinwe, which means God owns, because in those days God was the only one who owned anything in that house. She had a loom, a wedding band too thin to sell, and a baby who had her father's exact eyes. Now that baby was 18 years old. At 5:30, when the first gray light touched the window, the curtain moved and Chinwe came out yawning. She had just finished her secondary school examinations and was waiting, like the whole family was waiting, to see whether there would ever be money for anything after school. She looked at her mother bent over the loom and shook her head with love and worry mixed together. "Mama, you did not sleep again," Chinwe said. "I slept," Uchechi said. "My hands slept and my eyes worked. It is the same thing." "It is not the same thing." Chinwe knelt by the stool. "Let me carry the bread today. You rest one morning. One morning only." Uchechi put her hand on her daughter's cheek, her thumb moving across the girl's face the way it always did, because Chinwe had her father's face, and touching it was the closest Uchechi ever came to touching him again. "You have your own work," she said softly. "Go and read your books. We will carry the bread together, the way we always do." By 6 o'clock, the two of them were out on Douglas Road. Uchechi set up her small table at the same spot she had used for 11 years, in front of a chemist shop. On it, she arranged soft, warm loaves she bought each dawn from a bakery 2 streets away, and small, clear bags of groundnuts she roasted herself at night. bread and groundnut was the other half of her living, the half that fed them when the Uchechi cloth was slow to sell. She called out to the workers hurrying past and began another day. "Fresh bread, sweet groundnut. Buy and go, my customers. Buy and go." The coins dropped into her tin one by one. On her left hand, catching the early sun, was the thin wedding band, worn so smooth over 11 years that you could barely see it, but she had never once taken it off. When people asked why a widow of 11 years still wore her husband's ring, she would only smile and say, "Because I never got to say goodbye to him properly. Until I say goodbye, I am still married." That was Uchechi, patient, proud, tired in a way that sleep could not fix, and still waiting for a goodbye that had never come. She did not know that the goodbye was coming, and that it would come with cameras. It came on a Thursday evening, 3 weeks later. The rains had kept people indoors all day, and by 7 o'clock the road was wet and quiet. Because her own room had no television and the evening felt too long to sit alone with her thoughts, Uchechi walked down to the small viewing center 2 doors away, a narrow place with plank benches and one old television bolted high on the wall. The owner, a kind widower named Papa Ndubuisi, let her sit at the back where the cold blue light of the screen washed over the tired faces of the room. That evening there was a business program, the kind that showed rich men cutting ribbons. Uchechi was not even watching properly. She was thinking about her rent. On the screen, a reporter stood in front of a gleaming glass-fronted show house, while behind her a shining black Range Rover was parked, and workers in matching shirts hung a banner. "We are here at the launch of the newest estate by Uchechi Homes," the reporter was saying. "And with me is the man himself, the developer changing the face of this city, Chief Somadina Uchechi." A man stepped into the picture, and the room paid more attention, because everyone in Owerri knew that name now. Chief Somadina Uchechi. He wore a deep green kaftan, tailored clothes, and a heavy steel wristwatch caught the studio lights. A big man, calm, with gray coming in at the edges of his hair, he smiled at the camera the way rich men smile, politely and from a distance. Uchechi glanced up without much interest, and then she went still. Something in the way he tilted his head when he was thinking reached into her chest and squeezed. But it had been 11 years, and grief plays tricks, and she told herself she was a foolish, tired woman seeing her dead husband in a stranger's face again. She sat back and breathed out. Then the reporter asked him a question. "Chief, our viewers want to know the man behind the empire. What is your earliest memory?" The big man paused. For the first time, he did not look like a billionaire. He looked like a man reaching into a dark room for something he had lost. And then, half to himself, almost embarrassed, he began to hum an old Igbo courtship tune, the kind a young man hums when he is too shy to speak. After a few notes, he stopped and gave a small laugh and said the strangest thing. "You will laugh at me," he said. "My earliest memory is not a place or a person. It is a song like this one, and a phrase, 'The woman by the split mango tree.' I have carried those words in my head for years, and I do not know what they mean. My doctors say the mind is a mystery." In the back of the viewing center, Uchechi made a sound like she had been struck, because that tune was the one Akine used to hum under his breath whenever she pretended to be angry with him, until she could not stay angry anymore. And the woman by the split mango tree was his private name for her. They had met under a mango tree whose trunk had split into 2 when it was young, and grown up as 2 trunks from one root, on the road to her mother's compound. From the first day he had called her that. He had said those words at their wedding. He had whispered them to her belly the night before he fell. No one alive knew them but her. The tin of coins slipped from her lap and scattered across the cement floor, and Uchechi did not move to pick them up. Her eyes were fixed on the big man in the green kaftan, her mouth open, and the whole room turned to look at her. "Mama Chinwe, what is it?" Papa Ndubuisi said, hurrying over. "Are you all right? Is it your chest?" She could not speak. She lifted a shaking hand and pointed at the television, at the face of a man who did not know her, and whispered one word, "Ekene." They thought she had lost her mind. 2 women helped her up and walked her back to her room, murmuring the gentle, careful things people say to someone grief has finally broken. But Uchechi was not broken. For the first time in 11 years, she was awake. She sat in the dark and stared at the wedding photograph until Chinwe came home and found her there. "Mama, why are you sitting in the dark?" "Bring the lamp," Uchechi said, in a voice so steady it frightened her daughter more than crying would have. "I have something to tell you about your father. You are going to think I am mad, but I have never been more awake in my life." She told her everything, the song and the words and the split mango tree, and Chinwe, who had only ever had a photograph and a thin ring and her mother's stories, listened, with her father's own eyes growing wider in the lamplight. "Then we have to go to him," Chinwe said at last. "If it is him, Mama, we have to go." "We will go," Uchechi said. "Tomorrow, we will go and find him." She did not sleep that night, but for once it was not grief that kept her awake. It was hope. And hope, she would soon learn, can be the cruelest thing of all. The next morning they dressed in their best, a clean wrapper and a home-sewn blouse for Uchechi, a church dress for Chinwe. Uchechi wrapped the wedding photograph in soft cloth, and they took a keike and then a bus across the whole width of the city, from the poor, crowded end near Douglas Road to the quiet, wide streets of the government-reserved area where the rich people lived. They had to ask 3 times for directions to the Okereke house, and when they found it, they stopped across the road and simply stared. It was a fortress of quiet money. A tall black gate, higher than 2 men, ran along a whitewashed wall that stretched down half the street. Through the bars they could see a swept forecourt, grass cut so evenly it looked painted, and a 4-bedroom duplex the color of cream. The black Range Rover from the television gleamed on the forecourt, while a driver in a pressed uniform polished it, though it already shone. Cool air seemed to come off the whole place, while out on the street the afternoon was hot and loud. A gateman sat on a stool by a small door cut into the big gate, fanning himself with a newspaper. Uchechi crossed with her daughter, her heart beating so hard she thought the gateman would hear it, and stood at the small door with her photograph held against her chest like a shield. "Good afternoon," she said. "Please, I need to see Chief Somadina. It is very important. Please tell him a woman is here to see him. Tell him it is about the split mango tree. He will understand." The gateman looked her up and down. He looked at her cheap sandals and her home-sewn blouse and the wrapped bundle in her arms, and his face closed like a shop at night. "Chief does not see people at the gate," he said. "If you want to buy a house, go to the office on the main road. This is his private residence." "I am not here to buy a house. Please, my brother, just say those words to him. The woman by the split mango tree. If he hears them and sends me away, I will go and never come back. I swear it." But before the gateman could answer, the small door opened from inside. A smooth man in a gray suit came out, a phone pressed to his ear, the driver Bala following to stand with his arms folded. The man finished his call and looked at Uchechi with tired patience, as though she were a problem he had solved many times before. "I am Chizoba Anozi," he said. "I am Chief Okereke's managing partner. I handle everything that reaches this gate. Now, what is this about a mango tree?" Something told her to be careful with this man, but hope made her reckless. "Sir, the man you work for is my husband. His name is not Somadina. He is Ikene Nwokolo. He fell from a scaffold 11 years ago and we were told he died, but he did not die. I saw him on the television last night, and he remembers words that only my husband ever knew. Please, sir, I am not asking for money. I only want to see his face. I have his photograph here." She began to unwrap the cloth, and Chizoba watched her do it, and something quick and cold moved behind his eyes that Uchechi was too full of hope to notice, because he understood in that one moment exactly what this woman could cost him. For years he had quietly moved pieces of Okereke homes into his own hands, signing here, transferring there, all of it possible only because Somadina was a man with no past and no one to check the papers. A man like that could be robbed slowly and gently and never know. But a man who suddenly found a wife and a daughter and a whole life was a man who might one day look closely at his own accounts. That man was the most dangerous thing in the world to Chizoba Anozi. So Chizoba did not let her finish unwrapping the photograph. "Madame," he said, loudly enough that the driver and gateman could hear, "you are the 4th woman this year to come to this gate claiming to be married to Chief Okereke. Wealthy men attract this sickness. Some of you want money, some of you have simply lost your minds, and I do not care which. Chief Okereke has no wife. He is engaged to be married in a few weeks to a fine woman, and I will not let a roadside beggar and her child disturb his peace with lies about mango trees. Go home." "He is my husband," Uchechi cried, her voice breaking, and the photograph came free of its cloth at last. She held it up. "Look at his face. It is the same man. I carried his child. She is standing here. Just show him one picture, I beg you." At that moment, a low white car came through the gate, and a woman leaned out of the window, beautiful, in dark glasses and gold at her ears. This was Nonyelam. The socialite Somadina was weeks from marrying, and she looked at the scene with distaste, the way one looks at a stain. "Chizoba, who is this woman screaming outside my future home?" "Nobody, my dear," he said smoothly. "Security is handling it." "Then let them handle it faster." Nonyelam's eyes passed over Uchechi's cheap sandals and Chinwe's church dress. "Get her away before the neighbors see." And the white car slid into the compound, and the black gate began to roll shut behind it. "Please." Uchechi ran forward and pressed the photograph against the closing bars. "Ekene, it is me, it is Uche." But the gate closed. Bala and the gateman stepped between her and it, not roughly, but like a wall, and Chizoba looked at her through the last gap before it sealed. "If you come back to this gate," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "I will tell the police you are harassing Chief Okereke and threatening his life. And who will they believe? A beggar in home-sewn clothes or a chief? Whoever your husband was, he is dead. Let him rest." The gate boomed shut, and Uchechi stood on the wide, clean street with her daughter and her photograph and the roar of the whole unfair world in her ears. And for the first time she understood that being right was not the same as being believed. Chinwe put her arms around her mother right there on the street. "Come, Mama," she whispered. "We will find another way. There is always another way." But inside the tall black gate, Chizoba was already thinking hard about how to make sure this woman was never believed by anyone, ever, no matter what she said. "Let us go inside the gate, into the cool, quiet house, and meet the man himself." Because Chief Somadina Okereke did not know a woman had come to his gate that afternoon. He did not know he had a wife. He did not even know his own true name. But he knew something was wrong with him, and had known it for 11 years. 11 years before, in a hospital in the city of Aba, a man had been brought in from the roadside with no name and no papers, found near a market with a wound on his head and no memory of how he came to be there. No family claimed him, and the police wrote him down as an unknown person, a John Doe. He stayed many months. His body healed, but his memory never came back. He could speak and count and read, but of his own life before that day there was nothing at all, only a great dark emptiness where a man's whole history should be. The doctor who cared for him was a patient young man named Dr. Nwachukwu. He wrote everything down: the strong build, the marks of hard work on his hands, and 2 old scars, one on his left shoulder and one across his right shin, the kind a man gets from years on building sites. He kept that file, because a good doctor keeps his records, and because something about the case never let him rest. When the man was well enough to leave, a kind hospital worker called him Somadina, which means, "May I not be alone." He built a life on top of that borrowed name, the way a house is built on empty land. He understood building the way a fish understands water, as though it had been written into him before the darkness came. 1 small contract, then 2, and in 11 years, with a hunger he could not explain, he became Chief Somadina Okereke of Okereke Homes, the man who changed the face of Owerri. But the emptiness never left him, and 2 things clung to him out of the dark that he could never explain. The first was a ring. When they found him, everything he owned had been lost except a thin wedding band, worn smooth. The hospital had almost cut it off, but he had refused, even in his confusion, gripping his own hand. He had worn it every day for 11 years. On the inside was writing, "Worn faint," that he had read 1,000 times, a woman's name and a wedding date. He did not know whose. He only knew that when he looked at it, his chest filled with a grief he had no memory to attach to. There is no lonelier feeling than to mourn someone and not know who. The second thing was the drawing. In every long meeting, while lawyers argued and partners talked figures, Somadina's hand would wander across the paper and, without ever deciding to, draw the same thing. A small tree whose trunk split into 2 near the ground, and grew up as 2 trunks from one root. He had drawn it on contracts, on napkins, on the backs of his own cards, and had no idea what it was or why his hand loved it so. Once a designer asked to make it the company logo, and he had said no, sharply, because the thought of that private tree on a signboard felt like undressing in the market. It was his, though he did not know why. On the evening after Uchechi came to his gate, Somodina sat alone in his study, turning the ring on his finger, with the strangest feeling that someone had called his name from very far away and he had almost heard it. Into that study came Chizoba Anozi, without knocking, the way a man walks into a house he has already decided is his. "You look tired, Chief," he said, pouring himself a drink. "The launch is in 12 days, and there is the matter of the papers." "Which papers?" "The merger, Chief." Before the wedding, Chizoba sat and spoke in the soothing voice of a man explaining something simple to a child. "When you marry Nunyelam, it is only wise to arrange your assets properly. Put the company holdings and the land and the estates into the single joint structure I prepared. It protects you. You are a man with no family, Chief, no brothers, no parents to advise you. You have only me. Sign the merger before the wedding, and never worry about these things again." Somodina rubbed his forehead. "You always want me to sign quickly." "Because you always think too long," Chizoba laughed. "You are a builder, not a lawyer. Leave the paper to me." He leaned forward. "And Chief, one more thing. Some poor, confused woman came to the gate today, claiming to know you, telling stories about a mango tree and calling you by another name. Do not let it disturb you. The moment a man succeeds, they crawl out to claim him. I have handled it. Whatever she says, she is lying. Your past is empty. There is nothing behind you, nothing and no one." Somodina looked up slowly. "What did you say she called me?" "Some village name. It does not matter. What did she say about a mango tree?" Chizoba's smile stayed on his face, but his eyes went careful. "Chief, why does it matter? She is mad." "Because?" Somodina said quietly. And he was not looking at Chizoba anymore. He was looking down at the sheet of paper in front of him, where, without ever deciding to, his hand had once again drawn a small tree whose trunk split into two. "I have been drawing a mango tree for 11 years, and I have never told a single living soul." The room went very quiet, and for the first time in all their years together, Chizoba Anozi was afraid. He recovered quickly, the way clever, frightened men do. He laughed and said that every man draws idle shapes when he is bored, that a mango tree was the commonest tree in the country. He talked until the strange look left Somodina's face. But when Chizoba left the study that night, he made a phone call, and the plan he made on it was an ugly one. Because he understood now that the woman at the gate was not mad. She was telling the truth, and the truth, if it ever reached Somodina fully, would give the man back his memory, his name, his family, and with them the clear eyes to see everything Chizoba had quietly stolen. So the woman had to be destroyed. Not her body, her story. She had to be made into such an obvious liar that even if she stood before Somodina and spoke pure gospel, no one, not even Somodina, would believe a single word. Over the next days, Uchechi tried everything a poor, honest woman can try, and Chizoba was ready for each. She went back to the gate, and this time 2 new security men stood outside it and told her loudly, so the neighbors could hear, that if the mad woman came again to trouble the good chief, they had instructions to call the police. She went to the Okereke Homes office and waited all morning in the heat. When at last she was let in, Chizoba himself came down and had her escorted out before a room full of buyers. "This is the deranged woman I warned you about," he said, in a voice everyone could hear. "She has been harassing Chief for weeks. If she comes again, we press charges." And she left with her face burning. She went to a lawyer, who heard that the other side was Chief Somodina Okereke, and gave her back her crumpled naira. "Bring me evidence a court can hold in its hand, and I will help you," he said gently. "But a song is not evidence, and a rich man's word will crush a poor woman's word every time." "I am sorry, Mama. That is not justice, but it is the world." And Chizoba spread the word, for he was good at it. Soon it was all over that end of the city that the bread seller off Douglas Road had lost her mind with grief and gone about claiming a billionaire was her dead husband. People who had bought from her for 11 years now looked at her sideways. A few, cruel the way frightened people are cruel, told their children not to buy from the mad woman. There came an evening, a week before the launch, when Uchechi sat alone with her table half unsold and did not call out to a single customer. She had survived one loss for 11 years, and now the same man was taken from her a second time. But worse, because this time he was alive across the city, breathing and not knowing her, and the whole world had agreed to call her a liar. She looked at the thin ring on her finger and said, to no one, "Ikene, if you can hear me anywhere, tell me to stop. Tell me to let you rest. Because I do not think I can carry this again." It was Chinwe who would not let her stop. She was 18, with her father's face and her mother's stubbornness, and she had grown up on the story of the man in the photograph. She was not about to lose him now that she had seen him breathe. While her mother sold bread, Chinwe went to work with the only tools a poor, determined girl has: her legs, her voice, and her refusal to go away. First, she went to the television station and sat in its reception for 2 whole days, until a young producer, tired of stepping over her, asked what she wanted. Chinwe asked for one thing: the raw footage of the interview. Everything the camera had caught, not just the short piece that aired. "If I am wrong, no one is hurt," she said. "If I am right, you have the biggest story in this city sitting in your archive." The producer found the tape, and on it, before the interview officially began, while everyone thought they were not recording, Chief Somadina Okereke had been humming that courtship tune fully. Every line, eyes closed, like a man half in a dream. The producer watched it 3 times, felt the hair rise on her arms, and quietly made Chinwe a copy. Then Chinwe chased the harder thread. In the interview, the chief had mentioned he was first treated in Aba after an accident years ago. Chinwe took that one word and traveled, spending money the family did not have on a bus, going from hospital to hospital asking a question that sounded like madness. Did you, 11 years ago, treat a man with no name, a strong man with a builder's hands and a scar on his shin? In the 4th hospital, an old nurse remembered the doctor's name, and that was how she found Dr. Nwachukwu. He was grayer now, but he still had his files. When the girl told him her story, he went very still, then rose and pulled from a cabinet a folder that had waited 11 years to be opened. A man of no name, strong build, scar on the left shoulder, scar across the right shin, a thin wedding band he would not let them remove, and the date he was found, which matched, almost to the week, the fall of a scaffold in Oweri that took a young builder called Ekene Nwokolo. He looked up at her father's eyes in a young girl's face, and his own filled. "Child, I think his past has just walked into my office. I will come. Whatever you need me to say, wherever you need me to say it, I will come." And there was one more witness. Back in Oweri, an old friend named Maduabuchi, who had been Ikene's closest friend since boyhood and stood as his best man, had heard the rumors and had not laughed. He too had seen Chief Somadina on television and told himself he was a fool. But when Chinwe told him about Abba, the scars, the ring, the song, he wept, then lifted his head. "I knew that walk. God forgive me. I saw him walk across my television screen and I called myself a fool. Ekene walked a little to one side, from an old fall. I would know it anywhere. Bring me to him. I stood beside that man on the best day of his life. I will stand beside him again." So now they had it. The raw footage with the whole song, the doctor with the file and the scars, the best man who knew the walk, the photograph, and a wife who wore the matching half of a smooth, thin ring. But a poor family cannot summon a billionaire to a courtroom, and once the merger was signed and the marriage done, Chizoba would have everything sealed. There was only one place left where the whole city would be watching, where Somadina would have to stand in the open and could not hide behind a tall black gate. The launch of the new estate. "That is where we will go," Uchechi said, when Chinwe laid it all before her. Something had come back into her mother's face that Chinwe had never seen. A straightness, a fire. Not to beg him, not to shout at his gate like a mad woman. "We will stand where everyone can see, and let him remember me himself. A man cannot be argued into his own heart. But maybe, if he hears the song, he can be led back to it." The day of the launch was bright and loud and grand. The new estate stood on the edge of the city, rows of half-built terraces behind a great signboard that read Uchechi Homes in tall gold letters. In front of it, a cleared ground with a red ribbon strung across 2 poles, white plastic chairs under a wide canopy, and a raised podium. Buyers came in fine clothes. 2 television stations sent cameras. The black Range Rover brought Chief Somadina Okereke himself, in a fresh, deep green kaftan and his heavy steel watch. And beside him, Nigerian in gold, already half a bride. Behind them, Chizoba Anozi in a pale suit, smiling and shaking every important hand, believing his world was finally sealed. In 2 days there would be a wedding, and the merger would be signed. He had won. He did not see, at the very back of the crowd, a bread seller in a clean home-sewn blouse and her 18-year-old daughter holding a phone. The speeches went on the way speeches do. Then Chief Somadina rose to cut the ribbon. Cameras lifted. He stepped up with the big scissors, smiled his polite, distant smile, and just as the blades opened around the red ribbon, a sound came across the open ground. It was small at first. A phone speaker, turned up as high as it would go, held over an 18-year-old girl's head. And out of it came a tune, an old Igbo courtship tune, hummed by a man with his eyes closed. All of it, every line. The raw recording the television station had never aired. Somadina's hand stopped. The scissors hung open around the ribbon and did not close. He lifted his head. The crowd murmured and turned to look for the music, and the reporters swung their cameras, and Chizoba's smile fell off his face like a plate off a table. But Somadina was not looking at any of them. He stood very still, the way a man stands when he hears a voice in a house he thought was empty, and something behind his eyes was breaking open after 11 years. Through the crowd, a woman was walking slowly toward the podium. She did not run. She did not shout. She held above her head one old photograph in a cheap frame, a young bride laughing and a young groom looking only at her. And as she came, over the recorded humming, she lifted her own voice and sang the true words of the tune. And her voice shook but did not stop. Somadina's lips began to move. No one had taught him the words. No one alive but this woman knew them. But as she sang, his mouth found them, dragged up out of the dark where they had waited 11 years. Softly, then louder, the great developer began to sing along with the poor woman in the crowd, the 2 of them singing one courtship song across a sea of astonished faces. When they came to the last line, she stopped and let him carry it alone. Chief Somadina Okereke, in front of the cameras and the woman he was 2 days from marrying, sang the last line by himself, in a voice thick with tears he did not understand. And on the last word, his hand rose to the thin, smooth ring he had worn for 11 years without knowing why. He turned it in the bright sunlight. And into the microphone, still standing beside him, he read aloud, slowly, the worn, faint writing on the inside of the band, the name and the date he had read 1,000 times and never understood. Uchechi, he read, and his voice broke on it. Uchechi and Ekene. Forever. And then their wedding date, spoken out loud at last to a silent crowd. He raised his head and looked across all those faces until he found her, standing in the cleared space the crowd had made around her without knowing why. And the emptiness in his chest, the grief with no name, the ring, the song, the tree he had drawn 10,000 times, all of it came together in one blinding moment, and Chief Somadina Okereke was gone. Ekene Nwokolo stood on that podium with tears running openly down his face. "Uche," he said. Not into the microphone now, just to her, but the whole ground was so silent that everyone heard it. The woman by the split mango tree. The photograph shook in Uchechi's hands. "You remember," she wept. "Ekene, you remember." "I do not remember," he said, coming down off the podium, past the frozen guests, past Nigerian, past everyone. "I do not remember our life. I have lost all of it, forgive me. But I remember you. Somewhere under all the darkness I never stopped. I have mourned you for 11 years and I did not even know your name." And on that cleared ground in front of half the city, the billionaire developer took the bread seller in his arms, the old photograph pressed between them. 18-year-old Chinwe, who had never once been held by her father, walked into the circle of that embrace. He looked at her face, his own face, and understood, and pulled her in, and the 3 of them wept while the cameras drank in every second. But the story was not finished, because a lie that big does not die quietly, and Chizoba Anozi was not a man to fall without clawing. "Stop this circus!" Chizoba pushed forward, his face gray, his voice shrill. "Chief, this is exactly what I warned you about. This woman is a fraud. She found out about your accident and rehearsed all of it, the song, the photograph, to steal your name and your money. A song any woman could learn. A photograph anyone can fake. Security, remove them now." For one terrible moment it hung in the balance, because Chizoba was loud and afraid, and fear makes men persuasive. But Chinwe stepped forward with the phone still in her hand. "You want proof?" she said, and her young voice carried clear across the ground. "We did not come only with a song." And that was when they came out of the crowd. Dr. Nwachukwu, carrying a worn folder, 11 years old, walked to the podium and spoke to the reporters as plainly as a man reading the news. He told them of the man of no name brought to his hospital in Aba. The head wound, the lost memory, the builder's hands, the scar on the left shoulder and the scar across the right shin, the thin wedding band he would not let them cut away, and the date, which matched the fall of a scaffold in Owerri to within a week. I kept this file for 11 years, because I never forgot the man who walked out of my care with no past. Ask this chief to show you his left shoulder. Ask him to show you his right shin. Everything I have written is on his body. And Maduabuchi came out of the crowd weeping, and stood in front of the man he had not touched in 11 years. "Ekene, it is Madua. I carried your ring at your wedding. You broke your leg falling out of the Udara tree behind my mother's house when we were boys. And you have walked a little to one side ever since. I saw you walk across a television screen and I knew you, God help me, and I was too much of a coward to say it. Look at me. Tell me you do not know my face." And Ekene looked at him, his hand came up to his mouth, and he said, "Madua," in a voice like a man waking, "you had a gap in your front teeth." And Maduabuchi laughed and cried and showed the gap in his teeth, and the whole crowd made a sound like a wave. Then the young producer, who had come to cover a ribbon and found herself covering a resurrection, played the raw footage on the big screen behind the podium, the chief with his eyes closed, humming the whole song weeks before this woman ever appeared, proof there was no rehearsed trick. And face after face turned toward Chizoba Anozi. "But," Uchechi said, and she said it gently, which was somehow worse than if she had shouted, "I never once spoke to you about money. I came to your gate for one thing only. I came for his face." "It was you who kept talking about money, Mr. Chizoba. Why does a managing partner lie so much and threaten a poor woman with the police, only to keep a man from remembering his own wife? What is in those accounts that you did not want his memory to see?" The question hung in the air, and Chizoba's mouth opened and closed, because there were no clever words left. In the weeks that followed, when Ekene, with his clear eyes, returned to him, sat down with honest auditors and went through the books of Okereke homes line by line, they found it all. Small, quiet transfers, hidden companies, land signed away for nothing. A slow, careful robbery that had only ever been possible because the man at the top had no past and no one to check the papers. Chizoba had built his own fortune inside another man's empire, brick by stolen brick, in the shadow of Ekene's lost memory. And he had been ready to destroy a woman's whole life to keep that shadow from lifting. He was not beaten in the street. This channel does not deal in that kind of revenge. He was undone by daylight, which is worse for a man like him. The theft was laid bare before the same city that had watched him smile at every important handshake. He was made to sign back every share, bought out of the last he held for far less than he had schemed to gain. And the marriage fell apart on its own. For Nonyalam, ready to marry a fortune, discovered she had never been ready to marry a bricklayer who wept at a poor woman's song. She gathered her gold and went looking for an easier man. Chizoba left Owerri quietly, his name a joke where it had once been a boast, and the last anyone heard he was telling strangers in a far city that he had once been partner to a billionaire. No one believing him. The liar had become the one no one believed, and that was enough. But justice was not the end of the story. The end of the story was a homecoming. When the noise had died down, and the auditors had finished, and the papers were clean, Ekene did not throw a party. He asked Uchechi to take him to one place. Not to the tall house behind the black gate, not to any of his gleaming estates. He asked her to take him to the place where he had died. So on a quiet morning, the three of them went to the old site where the scaffold had fallen 11 years before. The half-built tower had long ago been pulled down, and the ground had sat empty and cursed ever since. A bad luck plot no developer in Oweri would touch. Grass grew over the broken concrete. Ekene walked out onto it slowly, a little to one side, the way he had always walked, and Uchechi put her hand, with its thin, smooth ring, into his, with its matching one. "I fell here," he said quietly. "I do not remember it, but this is where you lost me." "This is where I lost you," she agreed. "Then this is where we begin again." He turned to her, and to the daughter he was learning day by day, and his voice was steady now, a builder's voice. "The first thing I ever told you, Uche, before the darkness, was that one day I would build houses instead of carrying blocks, and the first house I built I would build for you." He looked around the empty ground, and for the first time she saw him see it not as a grave, but as land. "We will build it here, and this time my name will not stand alone on the signboard. Your name will stand beside mine. Because a man cannot lose everything he is and find his way back across 11 years and lost memory for no reason. What is truly yours finds its way home. You were always mine. I was always yours. Even the darkness could not change it." And so it was. Where the scaffold had fallen and a young wife had waited 11 years for a goodbye that never came, a new estate rose, bright and strong, and over the great gold signboard were two names, not one. The bad luck plot became the most loved address in the city. Uchechi kept her loom, but now she wove in a bright room with good light, for joy and not for fear of rent. Chinwe went to the university her family could suddenly pay for and studied to build, like her father. And Ekene, who had spent 11 years mourning a woman he could not picture, woke every morning beside her and looked at her face until he was sure she was real. He never fully got his old memories back. Some doors, once closed, do not open again. But he said, as long as he lived, that it did not matter, because a man does not need to remember every year of a love to know in his bones that it is his. The song had known. The ring had known. His own drawing hand had known. The heart remembers what the head forgets. Dear friends, this story reminds us of something gentle and true. What is truly yours will always find its way back to you, even across many years, even across lost memory, even across a whole city and a tall black gate and a mountain of lies. The world can call you a liar and close its doors, but truth is patient, and love is patient, and what belongs to you is only waiting for the right song to lead it home. Never look down on the poor woman at the gate. You do not know what she has lost or what she is about to find. Now let me ask you only one question, and I would love to read your answer in the comments. If a stranger with your loved one's face swore that he did not know you, how long would you keep trying to reach him? Would you have gone back to that gate again and again like Uchechi? Or would you have let him rest? Tell me honestly. I will be reading your messages. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that nothing truly theirs is ever lost for good. Another powerful and emotional story is coming your way very soon, so please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, give this video a like, and share it with a friend. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, and for having such a kind and patient heart. This story is fictional and was created only for entertainment and to share a moral lesson. All names, characters, places, and events come from imagination, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, or to real events, is purely coincidental.